How have the last couple of days been for you?
A little busy, but very nice. All preparing for tomorrow. Tomorrow is the big day, the big display. There'll be almost 400 blankets that the guests have made on board.
All right, so before we continue on with that, let's just get a little backstory. First of all, I want to know a little bit about you in case our guests are maybe not knowing who you are. I think there is a reserve sign for you in Holland America Line and Billboard on board and up at the Lido, but just in case, tell us your backstory. How did you come to cruising with Hal?
We used to be a vendor. We sold, my wife and I owned the company, and we sold industrial washers and dryers. The ones that are used in the main laundry, and years ago the guest laundry, the crew laundry, and the stage laundry. So we were a vendor. So we started cruising on Carnival, and we would go about 5 times a year. Carnival would ask us to go, and we would critique the laundry, we'll call it. And also it gave us, my wife and I, a vacation for 7 days, because we wouldn't call the office. And then from there we moved on to Princess, and then from there we moved on to Holland. And in 2016, we started doing 7 months a year on ships. So we basically do the world cruise every year, and then we fly in the fall, in August, we fly to the Netherlands and hop on a Pinnacle class ship, either New Koningsdam, New Statendam, or Rotterdam, and we sail for 3 months, 90 days, back to US. That's how we started with Holland America.
So when it comes to Project Linus, how did you get involved, number one, and how did the connection with Hal happen?
So Project Linus has been on a Holland America world cruise only for over 20 years. In 1995, Project Linus started in the United States. Today it has over 400 chapters nationally. So they're throughout North America, the United States, Canada, and the UK, and a few other countries, I believe. And they've made over 6 million blankets as of 3 or 4 years ago. When we did our first world cruise in 2017, my wife crochets, and I would just sit there and see the operation. There was a lady named Alvina who ran it for 15 years, and they used to get donated yarn. I call it grandma's yarn from the closet. Scraps, literally scraps of yarn they would get. And she would get 4 boxes of yarn, approximately 1,000 yards, 2,000 yards, very, very small amounts. And she would hand it out and hand it out. And I would just sit there and look at this and say, I think there's a better way we could do this. There has to be. And there was only about 20 guests who would participate, and they would make about 15, 20, 25 blankets. So in 2018, Hank said he has to find someone else to run Project Linus, and Albina wanted to retire. So I said, I'll volunteer, but we're going to do it a little differently. And we started purchasing yarn using coupons, my wife and I. And we would go into a store, Joann's or Michael's in the US, with coupons, and go back and forth with a coupon. One ski, one coupon, one ski, one coupon. And I say, that's not going to work. Speeding up the story, and during COVID, I called up the manufacturer and I said, look, I'd like to buy yarn from you. I'm willing to prepay for it. I'll pay cash for it. It's a $5,000, $6,000 order. How could I buy yarn direct from you? I'm sorry, you're not a retail store. We can't help you. I said, well, I'll call back tomorrow. I call back tomorrow. Mr. Gottlieb, you have to stop calling. I said, no, I'm going to keep calling. 20, 30 phone calls later, they said, all right.
Stop, Marty.
As long as you stop calling every day, we'll sell to you. And that's exactly how it happened. So we buy direct from a company called Spinrite, the largest in the world, and it gets delivered to our home. It's 70 or 80 boxes, with no exaggeration. It fills up our whole garage, and our living room, and our dining room. I mean, it's all over the place. And we have to buy 24 skeins per color. I also left out something else. I had no idea how to crochet, knit, skein. crochet and watching YouTube over and over and over again. And that's basically how it works. And then we drive a 15-foot truck down to the ship. It's about 50, 60 boxes of yarn that we bring on the ship. And they're all coded with numbers, and every day I give a list of what boxes I want. And it works. The system works.
You know, are you seeing a correlation between Hank and Crystal's story about calling Holland America twice a day until they finally got the job, to Marty calling that yarn manufacturer multiple times a day till you finally got it? So you went from 1,000 to 2,000 of grandma's, yarn, to now, is it over 1 million yarn? Tell me.
So we buy 1 million yards or 1 million meters of yarn. That's a tremendous amount of yarn for anyone to purchase in one purchase order. It's not common. Even Joann's or Michael's don't send in orders that large. It's a large, large order. And then it's delivered to a residential house. A tractor trailer with the liftgate is coming on my block. It must be someone's moving in or moving out. And then these pallets come down. And then I say to the guy, could you please push it into my garage, please?
So no storage unit. It all goes into the garage.
Yeah, it all goes into the garage, and then it has to be sorted because it's 24 skeins per color in a box.
What is a skein?
Uh,
This is crochet for dummies.
I know. So there's two words. One's called skein and one's called hank.
Okay.
A skein could come with 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards, and up. We buy skeins, 1-pounders, that have 812 yards per skein. That's very large. The average knitter or crocheter does not buy a skein that large. Why do we buy it that large? Because it's the cheapest per yard. When you buy in bulk a skein, if you buy 812 yards per skein, the cost per yard is less. So I'm a numbers guy. Everything to me is numbers. So I had to calculate how many guests are going to participate, approximately, how big a blanket is, 40 by 40 is the size that they asked for, and how many yards will they take up if they're knitting or crocheting. So it's 1 million yards of yarn. Plus, there's several guests who, because they've done this over and over and over on the World Cruise, they'll donate yarns. Or they'll ship yarn to our house. I'm serious. They call up Joann's and they say, I want to buy 12 skeins of yarn. They ask me what type, and it gets shipped to our house. So it's not unusual for me to come home and there's a box there on the porch, and it says Joann's. I said, I bet you some guests, she shipped it to my house.
So what happens at the end of the cruise with any well, number one, where do we store it on board? Is it in your stateroom? And then number two, what happens with any that's left over?
So let's talk about the stateroom. So it's not uncommon for me to, we have an inside cabin, cabin 1025. We'll have the same cabin next year. And it's not uncommon for me to walk into our stateroom and on the bed there's a crochet hook. There's some yarn. There's a blanket. There's some leftover yarn. Because the room stewards all know that I'm the guy. So when they get it from other people or a guest wants to just return it, and if I'm not there in Ocean Bar, they give it to the room stewards and the room stewards bring it to my cabin.
Your door is always open.
My door is always open. Thank God they don't knock on the door at 12 o'clock at night. So it's stored in a secure place on a ship. There's over 40, 50 boxes, huge, the largest moving box you can imagine. In fact, these boxes I get from a moving company. I buy used boxes from a moving company. I buy 50 every year, or 60 or 70 every year. And they're stored on board. To give you some numbers, we had to leave 12 boxes on the ship from 2023 World Cruise to 24 because I brought too much yarn. We were planning to have more guests. We had 1,400 on the 23 World, and I planned for 1,700. And again, it's numbers, so I project approximately 12% of the guests will participate, approximately 12%, male and female, as well as crew members. The acupuncture, the captain's wife,
I failed miserably, but I'm still hopeful.
There's hostesses, there's waiters, there's bartenders, there's various staff members who participate. In fact, we offered HR, it didn't happen this year, but we offered HR to give a knitting or a crocheting class at 10:30, 11:30 at night in the dining room, in private when they had time off, because they find it very relaxing. Crocheting is a very relaxing thing. In fact, I preach 3 things. It's supposed to be fun, it's for charity, and it's a little relaxing. A little relaxing. Sometimes it's frustrating, but it is a little relaxing.
Yeah, that would be my experience. And Marty, when I first met him, he said to me, I think this would be great to lower your blood pressure. I thought, you are probably right. Okay, so with all that in mind, though, what is the mission behind Project Linus? And then I would love to come out and have our guests ask questions. Tell us how and why this got started.
So, the mission, I have it over here. Mission statement. Project Linus is a volunteer nonprofit organization with a 2-fold mission. First, it's our mission to provide love, a sense of security, warmth, comfort to children who are seriously ill, traumatized, or otherwise in need of a gift of a new handmade blanket, lovingly created by volunteer blanketeers. The people who make the blankets are called blanketeers. And the second mission is our mission to provide a rewarding and fun service opportunity for interested individuals and groups, because we're a group here. In fact, Holland America is the only ship that Project Linus supports, that permits to make blankets on a ship, because you're supposed to have an address and a location. We're the only ones, the only cruise, only the world cruise of blankets made on a ship. And it benefits children. So this is the mission of Project Linus.
Fantastic. Questions that any of you may have for Marty? I know Gail must be here as well.
No, she's upstairs manning the
she's manning the booth. Okay, so what's going to happen tomorrow? And share with us some of the special pieces that you have as well.
So tomorrow, number one mission of tomorrow is to display the approximately 400 blankets that were made by the guests and a few members. It'll be our midship pool. We start setting up about 4:30, 5:30 in the morning. There'll be 30 tables, 30, plus 50 or 100 lounge chairs covered with blankets. Those are the ones that were made on the ship and never sold. They're strictly for the children. What you see here is 4 blankets. These were made by one lady who's not on the ship, strictly for the purpose of raising money for yarn. You have to remember, it's $7,000 or $8,000 between yarn, crochet hooks, needles, yarn ball winders. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the 812 yards of the skeins, we break up into something called muffins or balls to make it easier for the guest. We break that up into 200-yard increments. So these 4 blankets are a sample of the ones that we auction off to raise money for yarn. Only the 17 blankets. No other blankets are sold. None of the blankets that the guests made on board are being sold, except the one exception, which is the end blanket, which will say a lady named, we'll call it Anonymous, made it, again, specifically to raise money for yarn.
So all our guests can have it charged. Is it an auction? Is there a set price? How do you decide how these will go and for how much?
So we've done this rodeo before. We did it last year and it worked. So the minimum bid is $350. It's $25 increments and it's either cash or check. I don't want to put a burden on the ship to have them charged to the room card. It makes it a little too complicated. That's how it works. So it's a $350 per blanket, except for that end one. And it's $25 increments. I'll give you an example. I apologize. I'll give you an example. There's owls, Hello Kitty, Superman, helicopters, butterflies. Thomas the Train, Noah's Ark, the American flag, M&Ms. These are samples of the blankets that will be auctioned off, again, strictly for the purpose of raising money for yarn. None of the blankets, I want to repeat this over and over, none of the blankets that the guests have made, there are almost 400, are sold. They're all made with their hard work, for the sole purpose, and it goes to children. Not adults, it goes to children who are seriously ill. So not a broken leg or a broken arm. Ones that you and I could all guess with how they're going. In fact, there's some guests out here now, which I recognize them, told me a story that their grandchild was in a hospital for 2 months, and they got a Project Linus blanket. In fact, some of us all might have stories like that. I don't want to brag, but I don't have a story like that. I'm just lucky that my grandchildren, or I don't know anyone who got a Project Linus. But you asked the question, my responsibility, or what I volunteered for, is strictly to make the blanket, get the yarn here, figure that all out, make the blankets. So on May 11th, there'll be 3 or 4 pallets of boxes that'll go off the ship, and they'll be shipped to Project Linus' headquarters in Missouri. The headquarters of Project Linus is in Missouri, and then those will be distributed to the various states or chapters or hospitals where they don't have a very active community making blankets.
So is there an opportunity for our guests to check in with the Project Linus headquarters to see how they can help once they get back home, or maybe start a chapter back in their hometown?
Definitely. So there's, I live in Jacksonville, Florida. There happens to be 2 chapters in Jacksonville, Florida. In fact, sometimes when I'm home in between cruises and I want to lower my blood pressure, I'll make a blanket and I'll bring it to this lady's house or Joanne's, and I drop it off. So I do it year round because I want to keep remembering how to do it, because this way I can teach guests how to do only double crochet. It's the only pattern I know.
All right.
It doesn't look like any of these.
Question to your left, please, Marty.
Yes, good morning. At the end of the cruise, do you take in part finished blankets, or does the blanketeer hang on to it and finish it off?
So in the past, if a guest tells me they're on the 2025 World Cruise and they've finished half of their blanket, and they say, Marty, we want to work until beyond Puerto Rico. We want to work to the very last minute. And we make arrangements, so long as they're sure they're going to be on board 2025 World Cruise. I mean, very specific. Yes, that happens. But if a half-finished blanket, it's a problem, because it's very difficult for someone to take over an existing project. It's hard to find guests willing to do that. And if it's not double crochet, because that's the only thing I know, I can't do it. I mean, there's an expression, the bottom line ends up all at me, and I'm a volunteer. No, so it has to be a completed blanket. I don't mind if it's 33 inches versus 39, or I don't mind if it's 44 versus 39. But a half-completed blanket is just a problem. In fact, we have to rip it. Another word I had to learn. Rip it means take it apart and reball that yarn. And it's not good for the yarn, it stretches it. Yarn is not meant to be ripped, taken apart, and rewound and reused again. It's not good for the yarn. Yarn stretches.
Does it give you such joy when you look around this room and throughout the cruise, I mean from the Lido to the world stage during the talks, to see everyone just crocheting and knitting?
Yeah, it is. It does.
I bet it does. Good morning, Mrs. Eisenberg.
Okay, so Marty, about ripping them out. If I were halfway through one, that would just kill me for all the time and effort I put in. So, would it not be better to have them swear, promise, etc., go home, finish it, and turn it into the local Linus project?
Yes, that is fine, but it depends on a particular situation. Every situation is different, and sometimes the guests don't have a way of getting it home. I've never made a guest unhappy, if you follow what I mean. Again, Hank and I have an agreement. But remember, the first thing is for you guys to be happy. And the second thing is for charity, and the last thing is to lower all our blood pressures.
Here we go.
Approximately how many yards does the average blanket take?
12 to 1400 if it's crocheted, if it's 40 by 40. So when a guest makes it 41, that increases. Every time a guest turns in a blanket, we ring a bell. It's a little thing I created 5 years ago. And we ring the bell and say, oh, new blanket, new blanket, new blanket, new blanket. Some blankets are 60, 65 inches, 70 inches. I can't even hold it up. It's so big. But it's fine. There's children of all ages. So it works. It just works. The system works. In fact, this year, it's a little information, we made larger blankets. How did that happen? Because when a guest came by to get yarn, they're selecting like in a supermarket. They're picking out the colors that they wish. I don't know if you've all seen this. I tell them to pick out 10 muffins. 10 muffins is about 1,700 yards, which is way more than they need, which I don't mind. And they're just making larger blankets. This year we have larger blankets.
I don't know, but when you just said the ring the bell, being a gal that has had cancer, of course, touched her life very deeply. And for our Holland American Line family now, with our very own Bianna Lisa, going through her treatment, I'm thinking we need a blanket for B. I'm thinking so when she can ring the bell, she gets through her treatment, that she will have us to remember and Project Linus. So let's talk about that, because I think that would be
I have
beautiful.
an idea.
Okay.
I might have a special blanket.
Okay.
That is, okay, I'll tell you all. So we have a blanket that was made by Diana D'Agadio, who's not on the ship. She'll be on the World Cruise next year. And it says, Zyarden. It was made to be framed and hung up over the Future Cruise desk. Hank took it home and went to several places and couldn't get it framed. It was just difficult in the Netherlands. So I said, okay, I'll take it home and I'll try to have it framed. Maybe you will ask Diana, who made it, maybe we can have a plan B for that one blanket. Yeah, so maybe that'll work. Any other questions, guys?
Oh,
Yes, I can hear you.
no.
Go ahead.
How much yarn will you be taking home?
I don't take any home. My numbers were very good this year. It worked out, even with the 14 boxes left on the ship. I don't. I drive a car home, not a truck. But I do take home. Kit was so kind. She made these instruction books, which are beautiful pattern books. Pattern books. 2 on knitting and 2 on crocheting. So I want to protect those. I worry about the moisture, so I'm going to bring those home. I bring home the crochet hooks. I bring home the needles. I bring home something called a yarn ball winders. And that's what we use to break up. In fact, Ken is here, I may say, and he's our king this year of doing yarn ball winders. Ken went through 1 million yards of yarn. Wow.
Thank you, Ken. Question here.
I know it'd be different times, but how long would it take to make a 40 by 40 blanket on average?
No problem. So during the fall, like this coming year, I'll be on the Rotterdam in Norway. Beautiful ship, beautiful itinerary. I finish a blanket, so I work on it for 2 hours a day, sitting in Billboard. I love Billboard, and listening to the music, and I'll do a half an hour in my cabin, and in 8 days, I finish a blanket.
Whoa.
8 days. But it doesn't look like this. I use 3 colors. I do 10 rows of one color, stop. 10 rows of another color, stop. And 10 rows of another color. That's it. But the average guest is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, turns in a blanket. So there's guests who, and it's not a competition. Again, fun, charity, relaxing.
I'm kind of competitive, which is why the blood pressure is high.
No, it's
I want
not.
to know who's done the most.
I don't want to hear that. It's for charity and it's supposed to be fun.
Yes.
Not a contest.
All right, question over here to the left.
I've signed up for the Pole to Pole next year, which means if it's only the world,
any contingent plans?
I thought of it, and you would say, well, why can't you do it? It's too difficult. The logistics of it, the cost of it, the responsibility of it, it's going to charity, and I would feel very guilty if something went wrong. And you have to remember, it's all donations from guests. Sure, my wife and I, kicking kicking some money towards it, which we don't mind. But there's still this 30 or 40 guests who are contributing to this thing. So taking their money, and if something went wrong, if someone didn't protect, the expression protect the football, I got to protect the football. And that's what I do. I really do. I treat this like it's for charity, and I protect the football.
All right, question in the back, Marty.
Hi, Marty. So I've been a partner in Hope with St. Jude for over 20 years, and I'm just wondering, does the Linus Project send any of the blankets to St. Jude?
I'm sure yes, but I'm not at all. I don't want to. How do I say this politely? I don't want to be. I cry like a baby. I really do. So I don't want to deliver the blankets to the hospital. I don't want to see the children, unfortunately. I don't do that. I know we had a list. So here, in past years, the blankets all went to a Seattle chapter because they're the ones who gave the yarn for 15, 20 years. When I took over, I gave it 1 year to the Fort Lauderdale chapter. And they gave me a list of 20 places where, cancer this, cancer that, and very serious locations. I'm not involved in that. I don't know. I don't want to lie. I don't know. But you and I could assume for sure it goes there. It's all the St. Jude's place, the Ronald McDonald's places. I'm sure. I know one thing. It's strictly for children with very serious illnesses. Like I said, not a broken arm or a broken leg. I'll tell you a little story. So the yarn is all 100% polyester or acrylic. Has to be. It all has to be made in a scenario of clean, referring to you can't have pets. You can't have a dog or a cat. Every blanket gets washed. So these blankets are all going to get washed. Even brand new yarn is going to get washed and then folded up a certain way with a ribbon on top and a tag put on it that says it was made by loving hands. A blanketeer made it. So it's a very rigid rules that they have with the blankets. But it goes to every children's needy medical facility.
So with that in mind, we're going to get ready to wrap our time up. I do want to ask when our guests get, as far as wash goes, for their future when they're doing things, these can just be hand wash, machine wash? If they need something at home?
Well, it's polyester. Well, there are guests who bring blankets to the World Cruise that they made at home. But when they bring it, I have to test it to make sure it's polyester. And then I have to ask them, do you have a dog or a cat? And if they say yes, it's a problem.
So remind everybody once again, tomorrow. Poolside.
So tomorrow we'll start setting up, believe it or not, at 4:30, 5:30 in the morning. Because 400 blankets properly displayed takes a long time. The ship is offered to help, and all the blanketeers usually come up and help. There'll be 17 or 18 boxes of blankets up there. There'll be 17 blankets that'll be auctioned off. Only those 17 blankets. It's an open bid. There'll be bid sheets. It's well organized. And then at 11:30 it ends. Whoever's the bid who won, it's either cash or check. And at 12 o'clock it's finished.
Okay. Well, we hope and we want to thank you in advance for your generosity tomorrow. And thanks to everyone who has been diligently crocheting and knitting. I mean, Mrs. Voss has been there, the same seat for the last 100 days, right? I see Yolanda, I see Joe, and Mrs. Eisenberg, everyone that's all around. Gail in the back, thank you. Thanks to you and your wife for doing this. But, you don't get to go away unscathed. Because the thing about Coffee Chat, yes, let's applause first for everything that you do. The good work that you are doing, we appreciate that. So let's end our time with just a fun game, all right? Because that's what we do in Coffee Chat, and you just have to answer one or the other. The questions are this or that, yes? One or the other, rapid fire. Here we go. Coffee or tea?
Both.
Oh, morning or night?
Only morning.
Plans or surprises?
I don't do surprises well.
Okay. Savory or sweet?
Sweet.
Time machine or magic wand?
Time machine.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
Land or sea?
Sea.
Sight or sound?
Sound.
Bubbles or beer?
Bubbles.
Laundry or dishes?
Neither.
Passenger or driver?
Driver.
Work hard or play hard?
Work hard.
Dine in or delivery?
Dine in.
Money or free time?
Both.
Logic or emotion?
Logic.
Liked or respected?
Respected.
And most importantly, on the roll, is the toilet paper over or under?
Over.
Yes, of course it is! Happy Valley, everyone! Project Linus taking place tomorrow. Thank you so much, Marty, for your time.